Hi, I'm Diane Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's award-winning author and the author of the book Catching the Wind, and no other than Mr. Steve Physioc. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Steve, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yes, my name is Steve Physioc, and I have been a Major League Baseball broadcaster for 35 years, a sports broadcaster for 47 years, and I also went into writing in 2006 after visiting Lucca, Italy with my wife and having a vivid dream about a great walled city and two families struggling to produce a great wine. And 1 week later, actually after that dream, I went to another room, wrote down the outline, and then told my wife about the story. I said I had this dream about a great walled city, two families struggling to produce a wine, a spiritual young lady coming up from town and helping them out. And 1 week later, we were supposed to go to this town of Lucca, Italy, and I had never been to Lucca, Italy. I just finished my Angels baseball season in Southern California, flew out to Italy and was vacationing with my wife. Never had been to Lucca, Italy. And as we're driving in to meet friends and family, I saw these walls and I said, oh my gosh, this is it. These are the walls in my dream. And I said, Stacy, if you drive around this way, there'll be a portal you can enter. Park the car, not but a block away will be the city market, and not far from that will be the Church San Frediano, and all of those things took place. That's when I started writing in 2007. But you asked about my backstory, and I've always been a storyteller. I've been a storyteller for 47 years as a sports broadcaster, as a play-by-play broadcaster of football, basketball, and baseball. I most recently was one of the voices for the Kansas City Royals on radio and TV, and before that in Southern California with the Angels. I've also been with ESPN and Fox Sports doing football, basketball, and baseball. But Daniel, while I was on the road, I always had a book with me. And it wasn't a sports book. It usually would be a classic, whether it was John Steinbeck or Ernest Hemingway. And then in later years, Diana Gabaldon of Outlander fame, who's my hero. I absolutely love her. I think her writing is sensational. And then I'm also a fan of Kristen Hanna and Jodi Picoult. But I always had a book with me on the road. And as you might imagine, when you do three sports, football, basketball, and baseball, you're on the road a lot. So I read all the time, and I read brilliant writers. And in 2006, as I told you earlier, when I had this dream, started to write, that story became The Walls of Lucca, and the sequel, Above the Walls, about two families trying to produce a great wine in Italy's dark days of World War I, the rise of fascism, and World War II. Both of those books won the awards for Best Historical Fiction in 2018 and 2019 by Reader's Favorite and Reader Views. And then I decided to write kind of a baseball / political intrigue / action adventure / spiritual vision quest in Walks with the Wind and Catching the Wind. And those are my two recent stories. I just did finish my fifth novel, and that will be coming out within the year. But I'm reaching out to get representation for that book because we've done well. Walks with the Wind won the Writer's Digest Grand Prize in 2021, and Catching the Wind was a BookLife editor's pick in 2022. So we're doing well in the writing scene, and if anyone is interested, they can go to my website at stevephysioc.com or get the books on Amazon.
Mr. Steve Physioc, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world and being an award-winning author. How does the sequel build upon the events and characters arcs from the first book in the series?
Well, the way I look at Walks with the Wind, it's really the crucifixion of this young man, Sam Cloud-Carson. He's a baseball player who wants to make it to the major leagues. He has elite talent. He has scholarship offers. Major league scouts are watching him in the stands when he's in both high school and college. and then challenges come his way. And what takes place is that there's a bad guy, and the bad guy works for a private military. He is the owner of a private military company that does contracting work in Afghanistan. And in a little bit earlier than 2010, when we went from a military operation to a counterinsurgency operation in Afghanistan, we went from being a military operation there to having more military contractors in Afghanistan than military personnel. So this contractor is doing some security work there, but he's also doing it for nefarious reasons because he wants the mineral wealth in some of the mountains in the Hindu Kush Mountains. And he has come across, he's also, the bad guy's name is Drake Dixon. He's the private military contractor, but he also loves to hunt. And he gets trophies all over the world, whether it's lions and tigers and zebra, whatever. And he has them in his trophy room. Well, he always hires trackers. Well, he comes across this family of trackers in southwest Colorado to take him bear hunting in the San Juan Mountains. And Drake Dixon cannot believe the brilliance of this family, the Cloud-Carson family. And Daniel Carson, who is the father, is excellent, but he notices that the son, Sam, is even better. Well, Drake Dixon blackmails the father and then later the son to come work for him in Afghanistan as trackers to try and track bad, dangerous situations before they happen and basically report back to special forces so they can take out the problem before it affects the private military contractors who are building roads and bridges in the Hindu Kush Mountains. So it's got a lot going on, but as I said earlier, Daniel, I was blessed to have that book be honored in 2022 as the 2021 Book of the Year and for self-published books. It won the Writer's Digest Grand Prize and did quite well. The sequel, Catching the Wind, is after Sam in Walks with the Wind goes through difficulty and challenge and tragedy after tragedy. He finally makes it through. And I don't want to give away the ending of the story, but he has an opportunity to play baseball again. And that's what Catching the Wind is about. Walks with the Wind is about the crucifixion of this young man, and Catching the Wind is his resurrection, where he gets a chance. He doesn't get a chance in the baseball hotbed countries of Venezuela and Dominican Republic. He has to try out and come back in a country of Nicaragua, where he is reconnected with a friend of his who he worked with in Afghanistan. And so this is Sam's quest to come back and make it to the major leagues by way of a professional team in Nicaragua. And along the way, major league scouts see him, see his talent, and he's given an opportunity with a major league team, and the story continues there. But Catching is more about his emergence, and it's also about his love story. So Catching the Wind is not only Sam Cloud-Carson's story, but it's also the story of a young lady named Sydney Morgan, who happens to be a girls' soccer coach, and she's married in the Kansas City area. So it's their connecting and how they meet along the way.
Mr. Steve, did you always plan for some Cloud-Carson story to be a series, or did it evolve naturally?
Well, as a baseball broadcaster, I was always interested in my sport. And I had thought about that, like, particularly, what do you do when you've got these two gifts? And for Sam, tremendous athlete, both in basketball and baseball. Most athletes have success in many sports. And Sam also is a brilliant wildlife tracker. And like I said earlier, baseball players, particularly pitchers, have this ability to wipe out all of the white noise and focus only on executing their next pitch. They can block out what's going on the bases. They can block out the antagonism that they're receiving from the fans. And they can focus on throwing the ball exactly where he wants to. My role model for Sam is Greg Maddux, the Hall of Fame pitcher, who happens to be my favorite pitcher that I've ever watched of all time. He was an Atlanta Brave, but he didn't have tremendous velocity, but he had the ability to locate his pitches, to throw them exactly where he wants to with tremendous movement and had a great changeup as well. Sam has those same characteristics and that incredible ability to focus when things are falling apart around him with the bases loaded and one out or whatever. It's in the ninth inning. But he also has this unique ability to open his awareness bubble, to read nature when he is out tracking. As I said earlier, sights, sounds, smells, but also to trust his intuition. And that is why the bad guy in book one, Walk with the Wind, Drake Dixon, wants to use those unique talents to find the hot spots in Afghanistan and send them back so he can get what he wants, which is basically the mineral rights to a certain mountain. And eventually, well, I don't want to give away the story, but that's the direction it goes. And then it's a cute little love story in Catching the Wind between Sam and this young lady, Sydney Morgan.
So, Mr. Steve, are there any new characters introduced in this installment who surprised you as you wrote them?
Probably Sydney Morgan. Sydney is going to be Sam's love interest, and his love interest has self-esteem issues because Sydney was born with a cleft lip. And why did I choose that? Because my granddaughter, Taylor, has a cleft lip, and I think she's the most beautiful little girl in the world, more so her heart than anything else. But I've always thought, when you have some perceived flaw, let's say a cleft lip or some other disability, and people don't see the true you. Well, in this case, Sydney Morgan does have a little bit of a self-esteem issue because she's always been very aware of her cleft, and but she was a marvelous athlete. Led her team to the Final Four in Kansas, and again, this is a fictional character. And I chose a high school that was near me when I was the broadcaster for the Kansas City Royals, and I lived in Stillwell. So the high school was Blue Valley High School. So she is the fictional girls soccer coach of this high school, and she is an excellent coach. She was an excellent athlete, but she had some self-esteem issues. Married a guy who was a knucklehead, got involved with drugs and with alcohol, and here she is in this very difficult marriage. And what do you do when you're in a really difficult marriage and you're miserable and unhappy and you meet the one? Well, this is that kind of story with Sam and Sydney connecting in Kansas City, and it's a really cute way they meet and how they become friends. So I don't want to give away too much of the book, Daniel. So
Yes. So without spoilers, Mr. Steve, can you share a scene where a character made a choice that even you didn't expect?
Gosh, it always seems like you're giving something away. But I will go back to Walks with the Wind because I really think Sam's little sister is very significant in the story because once again, she is only, I think, 12 years old when we first meet her, and Sam is in high school. And when he finally gets to college and her health is depleting, I think she's 14 years old when he is a freshman at Colorado Mesa University. It was called Mesa State at the time when this fictional character was playing there. But their relationship is, I think, very unique because in their family, you have the mom and dad and you have the son and daughter. Well, his best friend, quite frankly, is his sister. And Sam's sister has had this kidney disease his entire life, and he can't understand why he was given so much. He's a great athlete. He's a great tracker. He gets to go outside. He gets to play. He gets to hunt. And he feels so terrible that his sister, suffering from this kidney disease, has to get dialysis all the time, has to get hooked up to a machine. But the one thing that she has that he doesn't have, is because she is always inside, she is constantly reading, whether she's reading the Bible or the Book of Buddha or Course in Miracles. But she also reads baseball books. She becomes basically her older brother's agent. She really is knowledgeable about baseball and is sending his resumes out to colleges and universities and major league teams trying to sell her brother. But what he sees in her is this wise young lady. And she's considered, as I said, Daniel, a shaman in her tribe. She has visions that are remarkable. And some of the visions she has are her brother's future. And that's why she wants to get him to exercise his spiritual muscle so he'll be able to handle these terrible tragedies that befall him as the story unfolds. And so I really like that unique story, that unique and beautiful relationship between a brother and a sister.
So, Mr. Steve, as an author, what will be your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, I just finished my fifth novel, and it's called Beyond This World, There Is a World I Want. And we go back to Italy. It's inspired by true stories that happened in northern Italy at the end of World War II, near the end, from 1943, 44, and 45. And it's dedicated to the women of the Italian resistance. And right now I'm seeking representation, looking for an agent, because my first four books I self-published myself. And since I've retired from baseball broadcasting and can focus entirely on writing, I thought I'd try and get representation. So I'm seeking an agent to help me out with Beyond This World, There Is a World I Want. But I really like the story. I've sent it out to several reviewers and received 5-star reviews. It's entered in some competitions, and I think it'll do quite well. But it too is historical fiction / love story between a young monk who sees a tragedy happen at his monastery, and it's a real life tragedy that happened late in September of 1944. And the meantime, what was taking place in Italy, women became a big part of the Italian resistance because so many Italian men were taken by the Nazis in northern Italy to work the Gothic line, which was the last lines of defense that the Germans had defending the Third Reich. And unfortunately for my protagonist character, my female protagonist, both her husband and father are taken to work the Gothic line, leaving her to do her husband's job and do her father's job working the farm. So it's her quest not only to become a school teacher, but also how she becomes part of the Italian resistance, and how this young monk and this young lady who believes that her husband has been killed in an Allied bombing, how they meet and their friendship and their relationship and how it grows.
Well, looking forward for that book, Mr. Steve, and good luck to your goals in life. So, what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to write their own book?
You know what? Don't ever give up. I've talked to so many people who've said, man, I'd love to do what you do. And I'll give you an example. I've become friends with Diana Gabaldon, who wrote The Outlander. And we got together. She and Doug are great people. They live in Scottsdale, and her books have been incredibly successful. But she would have people come up to her and say, you know, Diana, I would love to do what you're doing, but I don't have the time. And I guess they thought that Diana had plenty of time to write this book. But Diana told me, she said, Steve, when I first started writing Outlander, I was 36 years old. I was a college professor. I was married with 2 kids, and I wrote Outlander. So she said, you just have to want to do it. You just have to start and then be determined to finish. And so that's what I did. And when I first finished my first book, The Walls of Luca, which was actually The Walls of Luca and Above the Walls, and my developmental editor told me I needed to split it up. But when I finished it, she said, and several other people said, you know what, Steve, you've already done what most authors can't do. They don't finish. They start or they have an idea, but I don't have any fear. And when I wrote my first novel, I was completely expecting to get trashed on it when I sent it out to reviewers, because I don't know, I'm not a broadcaster. I'm not a writer. I was a sports broadcaster. And who the heck is who the heck is going to want to write or read a historical fiction about World War I and Italy and growing grapes from a guy who is a play-by-play broadcaster of football, basketball, and baseball. But the key is do your work, do your research. And I did plenty of research. And when you're a baseball broadcaster, that's all you do. So I did a ton of research for my books. But I think the whole key is don't quit. The inspiration that I want to give to others is if you want to write a book, write it, finish it, and then go back and edit it. And when you think you've gotten it good enough to publish, then give it to a good developmental editor who will be honest with you. And for me, I was able to find a very good developmental editor, a young lady by the name of Nicole Ayers. She has been my developmental editor for all of my books. And when I started working with her, I thought she might, have a couple of lines of critique. Daniel, she sent me a 32-page editorial summary. And she basically said, I'd take the first 3 chapters, throw them out, move chapter 4 to the prologue. Chapter 5 becomes chapter 1. And I trusted her, so I made all those changes. And I think as a human being, we all have egos and we think, oh my gosh, my work is great. But my thought was, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm a baseball broadcaster trying to write. So I trusted her. I trusted her changes. We worked beautifully together, and that's why I've chosen to work with Nicole with all of my other books, because she not only knows the book, she knows me, she knows the soul of the story, she knows the character development and what I'm trying to get across.
Indeed. Thank you for your advice, Mr. Steve. And if readers could take away one emotion or thought after finishing Catching the Wind, what would you want to be?
Well, I think one of the things that has always interested me about sports and team sports is sacrifice. How to use your unique gifts as an individual to help the team. And also, as human beings, we want certainty. We want everything to work out. But in sports, much like life, it doesn't. You give up a home run, you lose a game, you strike out 4 times. All of these things take place. But the guys that I have seen who have made it to the top, and I'm talking not only in sports, but in writing and business, are the people who let go of the bad and move on. My wife likes to call the world we're living in Earth School. We're here to learn lessons. And unless we learn those lessons, and if we refuse to learn those lessons, we're going to have to learn them again, whether it's this lifetime or another. But I've never been afraid of failure. And that's why I started to write. I finished the book. I got it out there. I sent it to reviewers. I completely expected to be criticized heavily, but the reviews were quite good. So I continued. And the result is now my 5th book.
Congratulations, Mr. Steve. And we are looking for more and more and more award-winning pieces like this. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season. Abstract poetry in 2nd season. Book 101 review for sure. It's my 5th season. Comedy 101 in 2nd season. Food 101 in its 5th season. Geography 101 and Love Letters in its 3rd season. And Mental Health 101 in its my 1st season as a May Baby podcast. Movie 101 review and Music 101 in its 4th season. And Sex 101 and Science 101 in its 1st season as well. Please do listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Steve, what do you hope fans of the first book will appreciate most about this sequel?
Well, and you're talking about the Walls of Luca series or Walks with the Wind series?
Walk with the Wind series.
Actually, both series lend itself to the power of forgiveness. The Walls of Luca, we have an individual who is Well, all of my characters have some form of unforgiveness in the walls of Luca. And the same thing is true with Walks with the Wind and Catching the Wind, where my main character, Sam Cloud-Carson, he has had terrible things happen to him, but he has to be able to forgive some of the people that have hurt him. And he also needs to learn how to forgive himself so he can move on and become the man and the baseball player that he wants to be. So a lot of my stories do have a lot to do with forgiveness. I am a student of A Course in Miracles. It's a book about basically a spiritual self-study that teaches the way to love and inner peace is through forgiveness. And so I want those principles to come through in all of my books, which they do. I think there's a strong spiritual message in all 4 of my books, now 5 of my books. And as I said, Daniel, if anyone is interested in the Walls of Lucas series and the Walks with the Wind series, they can go to my website at stevephysioc.com or go directly to Amazon and purchase them that way. But I think if you check out the reviews on Amazon and some of the professional reviews that I've had, they've been very, very good and very, very thoughtful. But a lot of my stories do have to do with loss, spiritual growth, in Sam Cloud-Carson's case, forgiveness, and vision quest, a young man's vision quest.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Steve, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to the world, Mr. Steve, and we are looking for more and more and more award-winning pieces to come. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Absolutely.
So where do you usually buy your books, Mr. Steve?
Well, we have an independent bookstore here in Evergreen, Colorado, where I live, and it's called Hearthfire. And they do a great job. They're an independent bookstore. So obviously, you can get the Walls of Lucas series there, D2D, and as I said, stevephysioc.com or Amazon. But the only bookstore we have in Evergreen, Colorado is Hearthfire, and it's very warm to my heart. I love the people who work there and manage the place, and I'm glad we still have independent bookstores throughout America.
Indeed, people, I support Mr. Steve Physioc because if you support him, have I said, more and more and more award-winning pieces to come. So, Mr. Steve, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Welcome, people. See you soon.